Some minds, they don't just know stuff. They completely restructure how we even think about knowledge itself. So today, we're going to try and get inside the head of a true legend to understand not just what he thought, but how he thought. So this is Rabbi Yosef Rosen. He's way better known as the Rogotchover Gaon, which basically means the genius of Rogachev. And in the early 20th century, he was a figure of almost mythical intellectual power. I mean, the stories about his photographic memory are legendary. But here's the thing. His real genius, it was something else entirely.
So that makes you wonder, right? What does a mind like that actually produce? How do you even capture a thought process that's just operating on a totally different level?
Well, a lot of the time, it looked like this. And this isn't just dense text. It's a crazy web of connections that spans thousands of years of Jewish legal thought, and usually with zero introduction or explanation. It's like someone handed you the raw source code from a genius's brain. Our job today, let's see if we can crack that code. The Rogatchover's reputation was built on his insane ability to instantly recall pretty much any text from the vast library of Jewish law. But see, he wasn't just some human search engine. Nope, he was more like an architect.
So here's the crucial point. When people asked him a question, he didn't just spit out an answer from some book. He would basically take the question apart, piece by piece, and reveal a hidden logical structure that nobody else had even noticed. He was literally building new tools for thinking to solve old problems.
To really get a handle on this, we can't just talk about it in the abstract. You've got to see it in action. So we're going to walk through two actual cases from his writings, his replies to legal questions that were sent to him.
And these two examples are just perfect windows into his mind. The first one is a community dispute that seems pretty simple on the surface. The second one, it's a high-stakes intellectual detective story. We're going to start with what looked like an everyday problem. All right, so our first case. It comes from a synagogue that had a really practical day-to-day problem. But for the Rogatchover, there was no such thing as a simple problem.
Here's the question they asked him. Who is the legal owner of a Torah scroll? Is it the synagogue's leadership, all the community members? And this really matters, It decides who can repair it or sell it or even just lend it out. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Yeah, but straightforward just wasn't in his vocabulary. His response completely sidestepped all the obvious answers. Instead, he introduced a totally new way of looking at it. He basically said, hold on, everybody's asking the wrong question because you're all working with the wrong idea of what ownership even is. He proposed this brilliant idea. There are actually two kinds of ownership. The first, kinyan ezem, is physical ownership. It's how you own a car or a book you bought. Simple enough. But then he defined the second type, kinyan hator, which we can call purpose ownership. This is the right to an object's function. A public library is a perfect example, right? No single person owns the physical books, but the community as a whole owns the right to read them. So his stunning conclusion was that for a sacred object like a Torah scroll, physical ownership doesn't even really exist. Its entire legal reality is tied to its purpose, which is being read by the community. The community doesn't own the parchment and the ink, they own the reading. And just like that, with this one powerful distinction, the whole problem just dissolved. He solved it in a way no one had ever even imagined. Now for our second case. Let's shift gears from community property to intellectual fraud. This is a real-life detective story, and the Rogatchover is basically our Sherlock Holmes. So picture this, a section of the Jerusalem Talmud, a foundational text of Jewish law that no one had ever seen before, just suddenly appears. It's a monumental discovery, if it's real. A transcript was sent to the Rogotchover, and they asked for his opinion. And here is the absolutely incredible part. He never saw the physical manuscript. He didn't do any chemical dating of the ink or analysis of the parchment. His entire investigation was based purely on the text itself. It was a feat of pure intellectual forensics. So how on earth did he do it? Well, he identified the forger's intellectual fingerprints all over it. The forger had misquoted other ancient texts. The legal arguments were clumsy and internally inconsistent. The writing style, it just felt wrong, like a bad imitation. The forger knew a lot of information, but he didn't understand the deep underlying logic of the Talmudic system, a logic the Rogatchover knew like the back of his hand. And this was his verdict. Not just, oh, it's fake. He used this powerful poetic metaphor. It is silver mixed with dross. It looks valuable on the surface, but it's full of impurities. He saw right through the disguise and exposed the fraud with nothing but the power of his mind. So, what do these two very different cases, a synagogue scroll and a forged text, tell us about the Rogotchover's legacy? The key takeaway here is that his importance isn't just in the specific answers he gave. It's in the method he pioneered. He left behind a whole new way to analyze the entire structure of Jewish law. You can almost break his method down into 4 steps. First, he'd isolate the absolute core of a problem, like ownership. Second, he'd create a powerful new distinction, like physical versus purpose ownership. Third, his mind would synthesize hundreds of scattered sources from all over the literature to test and support this distinction. And finally, he would emerge with a completely new theory that explained everything in a more elegant and unified way. Ultimately, the Rogotchover Gaon saw something that others didn't. For him, it wasn't just text on a page, it was this vast, interconnected logical edifice. He wasn't just living in the building, he was the architect who could see its blueprints and even redesign it. And that leaves us with a final thought. His life and work really challenge us to think about what genius truly is. Is it simply having a massive memory and knowing all the answers? Or is it that rare ability to look at a question everyone thinks they understand and redefine it in a way that changes everything?